Welcome to Life Stories. Today, we bring you the inspiring journey of Emma Hayes, a woman who turned her passion for helping families into a thriving business. From her humble beginnings as a nanny to becoming a successful family consultant, Emma's story is one of resilience, determination, and self-discovery. She faced countless obstacles, but through it all, she learned to trust herself, balance her life, and make a lasting impact on those around her. Join us as we dive into her remarkable story of growth and transformation. Subscribe to our channel to begin today's story. The warmth of the early morning sun streamed through the window, casting a golden hue on the simple Philadelphia apartment where Emma lived. At 25 years old, Emma had dedicated much of her life to caring for children, a passion that began when she was only a teenager. From the moment she took her first babysitting job at 18, she knew this wasn't just a job, it was a calling. For Emma, nurturing children was her way of giving back to the world, a way to make a difference in small but meaningful ways. Emma's reputation as a nanny was well established among families in the area. She was known for her patience, kindness, and an unwavering ability to connect with children. Yet, behind her gentle demeanor lay a silent resilience. Her employers often mistook her kindness for weakness, speaking to her dismissively or piling on unreasonable demands. It was a subtle pain she had learned to endure, swallowing her pride for the sake of the children she cared for. It's not about them, she would tell herself late at night, lying in bed after another exhausting day. I'm here for the kids. They're the ones who matter. Her most recent job with the Petersons had started with promise. Sarah and David Peterson, a wealthy couple living in a grand townhouse, had a 10-month-old son named Liam. Emma adored Liam from the moment she met him. His infectious giggles, chubby hands reaching for her, and bright eyes filled her heart with a kind of joy that made everything else fade into the background. For Liam, she would put up with Sarah's cold remarks and David's silent indifference. But no amount of love for Liam could prepare her for the events of that fateful day. Emma was sitting cross-legged on the carpeted floor of the Petersons' living room, shaking a brightly colored rattle as Liam crawled toward her with the determination only babies possess. His laugh filled the room, and for a brief moment, Emma allowed herself to feel content. "You're so fast, Liam. Come on. You can do it," she encouraged, her voice filled with genuine excitement. The joy was short-lived. The sound of heels clicking against the polished floor announced Sarah's arrival. She entered the room dressed in a tailored suit, her phone pressed against her ear, her expression exuding a mix of irritation and disdain. Her sharp eyes scanned the scene. "Emma," she said curtly, pulling the phone away from her ear for just a moment. "Could you at least try to look professional? Those jeans and that old shirt, honestly. How am I supposed to trust you with my son?" Emma's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and she instinctively lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Peterson. I'll try to do better," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. She had heard similar comments from Sarah many times before, but the sting never lessened. Sarah huffed and walked into the adjoining kitchen, still muttering about appearances. Moments later, Emma heard a dull thud followed by Liam's cry, a sharp, heart-wrenching sound that sent Emma scrambling to her feet. She rushed into the kitchen to find Sarah standing frozen, holding Liam awkwardly in her arms. A red mark was already forming on the baby's forehead. "What happened? Is Liam okay?" Emma asked, reaching out to comfort him. But before her hands could reach Liam, Sarah stepped back and glared at her. "It was you," Sarah snapped, her voice rising in accusation. "I trusted you to take care of my son. And look what happened. How could you be so careless?" Emma was stunned. "Mrs. Peterson, I wasn't near him," she protested, her voice trembling. "I was in the living room playing with him when I heard him cry." But Sarah wasn't listening. She waved off Emma's explanation, her face twisting into a mask of anger. "I should have known this would happen. You're negligent and unfit for this job. By the time David arrived home that evening, Sarah had already made up her mind. "Emma," David said, his voice laced with pity as he avoided her eyes, "we've decided it's best if we terminate your employment. Liam's safety is our priority." Emma stood in stunned silence, the words hitting her like a blow. She tried to plead her case, her voice breaking under the weight of her emotions. "Please, Mr. Peterson, don't fire me for something I didn't do. I love Liam. I care for him like he's my own." But her words fell on deaf ears. Sarah crossed her arms and delivered the final blow with a tone of icy authority. "Pack your things, Emma. This discussion is over." That night, as Emma walked home carrying a small box of her belongings, she felt hollow. The streets of Philadelphia seemed unusually cold and unwelcoming, the city lights casting long, distorted shadows. She replayed the events of the day in her mind, the injustice of it all gnawing at her. Liam's innocent face, his cry of pain, and the harsh words of Sarah and David, all of it swirled in her thoughts like a storm she couldn't escape. But amidst the sorrow and anger, a spark of determination flickered within her. She paused on the steps of her apartment building, looking up at the dark sky. "They may have taken away my job," she whispered to herself, "but they won't take away my dignity. I'll prove to myself that I'm more than what they think of me." With that resolve, Emma took her first steps toward a new chapter, one that would test her strength, resilience, and capacity to love in ways she had never imagined. The days after Emma left the Petersons were filled with uncertainty. She had no job prospects, no real plan, and the bitter taste of betrayal lingered in her mind. Yet, amidst the confusion, a spark of hope began to take root. She couldn't afford to dwell on the past. For Liam's sake, for her own dignity, she had to move forward. The city of Houston seemed like the perfect place to begin again, offering new opportunities and, hopefully, new employers who would appreciate her work. When she arrived in Houston, Emma immediately set to work applying for nannying jobs. Her determination never wavered, and she was soon hired by Michael Carter, a single father looking for a live-in nanny to care for his infant daughter, Grace. Michael's home was large, and the pay was decent, far more than she had ever earned before. Emma felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. Perhaps this was the fresh start she so desperately needed. However, from the moment she entered the Carter household, Emma realized that things wouldn't be as perfect as they seemed on paper. Michael was distant, a man consumed by work, and his home was eerily quiet, almost too quiet. Grace, only 6 months old, was sweet and easy to care for, but the atmosphere in the house made Emma uncomfortable. Michael's cold demeanor made her feel like an outsider, a mere employee rather than someone entrusted with the care of his child. Over the next few weeks, Emma settled into her new routine. She woke early to prepare Grace's bottles, spent long hours caring for the baby, and did her best to keep the house in order. But as the days went on, the conditions grew harder. Michael's demands became unreasonable, and his treatment of her bordered on demeaning. Emma found herself running errands, cleaning the house, and even doing the family's laundry, tasks that were outside her agreed-upon duties. Still, she kept her head down and did what was asked of her, reminding herself that she was here for Grace, that she couldn't let the situation affect her dedication. One night, after a long day, Emma sat in the living room, feeding Grace and watching the evening news. The silence in the house was suffocating, and her mind raced with thoughts of her former life in Philadelphia. The memory of the Petersons' cruelty still stung, and Emma found herself wondering if she had made a mistake in leaving. She wanted to believe that this time would be different, that this time, she would find a place where she was truly valued. But every time Michael walked into the room, he seemed to treat her as if she were invisible, as though her presence didn't matter. Then, things took a turn for the worse. One evening, after Grace had been bathed and put to bed, Emma was sitting at the kitchen table when Michael came in, holding a stack of papers. His face was hard. His eyes cold. "I need you to do something for me," he said without preamble. Emma looked up, trying to read his expression. "What is it?" she asked cautiously. "There's a problem with the house's plumbing," Michael began, his voice tight. "I need you to handle it. Get someone to fix it." Emma blinked, surprised. "But Mr. Carter, I'm not a plumber, I'm a nanny. I don't have the expertise to fix plumbing problems." Michael's eyes narrowed. "I didn't ask for your excuses. Emma, just get it done. This is part of your job, whether you like it or not." She opened her mouth to protest, but something in his icy stare made her hold back. The words died on her lips. And for the rest of the evening, she couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest. The next day, Emma found herself frantically searching for a plumber, trying to arrange an appointment. As she made calls and juggled Grace's needs, the weight of the situation became clearer. Michael wasn't interested in her skills as a nanny, he was treating her as nothing more than a housekeeper and errand runner. The work was endless, and the mistreatment wore her down bit by bit. By the end of the week, Emma had reached her breaking point. She realized that the price of staying in this job, of sacrificing her self-respect and her dignity, was too high. She needed to leave. Emma had learned the hard way that she could never again allow herself to be treated like a servant. She packed her things quietly, leaving a note for Michael, and walked out the door. Once again, she found herself standing on the street, uncertain but resolute. The world seemed vast and full of possibility, but Emma knew one thing for sure: she wouldn't stop fighting for the respect and dignity she deserved. And this time, she wouldn't settle for anything less. The cool breeze of early autumn ruffled Emma's hair as she stepped out of the Carter household, her resolve growing stronger with each step. This time, she wouldn't allow herself to be mistreated again. She had left Philadelphia, left the Petersons, and now she was walking away from Houston, leaving another toxic work environment behind. But where would she go now? With no job, no savings, and a heart full of doubt, Emma found herself standing at a crossroads. As days passed, Emma struggled to keep her spirits up. She had applied for countless jobs, but nothing seemed to be working out. The market was saturated with qualified nannies, and the rejection emails piled up. Each one stung more than the last, and the weight of failure threatened to pull her down. It wasn't just the jobs she was losing, it was her faith in herself. One evening, after another round of fruitless job applications, Emma sat down on the worn-out couch in her small Houston apartment. The apartment was dimly lit, and the city's distant hum barely filtered through the cracked windows. She pulled out the only picture she had from her days with Liam. The photo of the two of them laughing together, his tiny hand in hers. Looking at it, Emma felt a mixture of pain and determination. Liam was out there, somewhere, growing up, and she wasn't there to care for him. She had given her all to those children, and all she had received in return was rejection. But maybe, just maybe, there was a family out there who would see her worth. It was then that her phone buzzed. Emma looked at the screen, startled to see an unfamiliar number. She hesitated, but then answered. "Hello," she said, her voice tinged with both hope and caution. "Is this Emma Hayes?" a voice asked. Warm and friendly. "Yes. This is she," Emma replied, sitting up straighter. "Hi, Emma. My name is Claire Davis. I'm calling because I saw your profile online, and I think you'd be a perfect fit for a nanny position we have available. I work for a family in the suburbs here in Houston, and we're looking for someone reliable and caring. Would you be interested in an interview?" Emma's heart leaped in her chest. "Yes, absolutely. I'd love to meet with you," she said without hesitation. The glimmer of hope she had been holding on to suddenly seemed brighter, as though the universe had finally heard her silent plea. The interview was set for the following day at the Davis family's home, a sprawling suburban house in a quiet neighborhood. Emma tried to contain her excitement as she prepared. carefully choosing a professional outfit and running over her qualifications in her mind. It was her chance to start fresh, to prove to herself that she was capable of more than just being a disposable employee. When Emma arrived at the Davis home, she was greeted by Claire, a warm and friendly woman in her mid-30s. Claire led Emma through the home, showing her around and introducing her to the family. The Davis family was kind, with 2 young children, Sophie, a 3-year-old girl with big blue eyes, and Noah, a 1-year-old who immediately reached out for Emma as if recognizing her warmth. "Isn't he sweet?" Claire said with a smile, watching as Emma gently took Noah into her arms. "He's a little shy at first, but I can already tell he likes you." Emma smiled softly, her heart swelling. For the first time in a long while, she felt the deep, familiar sense of purpose that came from holding a baby in her arms. "We've been looking for someone who truly loves children," Claire continued. "Someone who's not just looking for a job but who sees it as a calling. I think you might be the one we've been waiting for." Emma felt a rush of relief flood her chest. It wasn't just the words that reassured her, it was the sincerity in Claire's voice. She wasn't just a fill-in for the job, she was being seen, being recognized for the love and care she poured into every child she worked with. Over the next few days, Emma started her new position with the Davis family. The work was everything she had hoped for: rewarding, fulfilling, and best of all, appreciated. The days were filled with laughter as Sophie and Noah quickly warmed to her, and the family treated her with respect and kindness. For the first time since leaving Philadelphia, Emma felt like she had found a place where she truly belonged. As she sat in the Davis family's spacious living room one evening, watching Sophie color on the floor while Noah slept in her arms, Emma realized that she had finally found the peace she had been searching for. It wasn't just the new job, it was the realization that she had earned this. She had fought for her dignity, for her self-worth, and in the end, it had led her to the right place. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, her voice barely above a whisper, as if the words themselves would cement her belief. The pain of the past still lingered, but it no longer defined her. Emma Hayes was no longer just the nanny who had been mistreated. She was a woman who had endured, learned, and come out stronger on the other side. And with each passing day, she grew more confident that she would never again allow herself to be anything less than what she was: a woman with dignity, purpose, and the power to change her future. The weeks passed quickly at the Davis household, and Emma's bond with Sophie and Noah grew stronger every day. She found joy in the small moments: Noah's giggles when she played peekaboo, Sophie's curiosity as she asked endless questions about everything from animals to the stars. It was a life she had longed for, one filled with love, trust, and respect. But even in the most peaceful of times, the past has a way of creeping in. Emma couldn't fully escape the shadow of the Petersons and the Carters. The constant fear of rejection still clung to her. And though she had found a job where she was respected, Emma knew she wasn't immune to the harsh realities of being a nanny. She worried that one day, things could change again. She wasn't sure if she could handle another blow to her sense of self-worth. Claire noticed the change in Emma, the subtle tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes sometimes seemed distant. One afternoon, as Emma was playing with Sophie in the living room, Claire took her aside. "Emma," she began, her voice gentle, "is everything okay? You've been a little quiet lately. You know you can talk to me if something's bothering you." Emma froze, a little caught off guard. She had grown fond of Claire, but the idea of opening up about her past felt like exposing a wound that was still raw. She hesitated, but then realized Claire wasn't asking out of curiosity, she was asking because she genuinely cared. I guess I've been worried," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I keep wondering when things will go wrong, when I'll make a mistake, and you'll decide I'm not good enough." Claire's expression softened, and she placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Emma, I want you to understand something. You've been nothing short of incredible with Sophie and Noah. I'm not just saying that to make you feel better, I truly believe it. We're not just looking for someone to care for our children. We're looking for someone who will be part of our family. And that's what you've become to us." Emma blinked back the tears that had suddenly appeared, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. It wasn't just the praise, it was the feeling of truly being seen, of knowing that she mattered. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't mean to sound ungrateful. It's just hard to let my guard down after everything that's happened." "You don't need to apologize," Claire said firmly. "You've been through a lot. But you don't need to carry it all on your own. If there's ever anything you need, I'm here for you. And don't forget, we trust you completely with Sophie and Noah." The weight in Emma's chest began to lighten. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a genuine sense of peace. She wasn't just Emma the nanny anymore, she was Emma the trusted caregiver. The person who had earned her place in this family. She could finally allow herself to believe that she was enough. But as much as Emma wanted to believe in this newfound sense of stability, a part of her remained cautious. She continued to work with the same care and dedication, always trying to prove herself. But this time it was different. She was no longer trying to prove anything to herself or to anyone else. She was proving something to the past that had tried to break her. The past that told her she wasn't worthy. One afternoon, just a few weeks after the conversation with Claire, something happened that would test everything Emma had come to believe about her place in the Davis family. Sophie, while playing outside, had wandered too far down the driveway, and Emma had been too busy organizing the kitchen to notice. When she looked out the window and saw Sophie standing near the road, a chill of panic ran through her. "Sophie," Emma called. Rushing out the door, she grabbed the little girl's hand and pulled her back toward the yard, her heart pounding. "You can't go that far without telling me. You could get hurt." Sophie, confused by Emma's reaction, started to cry. Emma immediately knelt down to comfort her, her panic giving way to guilt. "I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm just worried about you. Okay? Please don't wander off like that again." Claire, who had been in the garden, noticed the commotion and came over. She saw Emma kneeling beside Sophie, the child's tears staining her cheeks. But as she looked at Emma, she didn't see anger or blame, she saw concern. She saw care. "Is everything all right?" Claire asked, her voice calm. Emma nodded, her own voice shaking slightly. I didn't see her leave the yard. I'm so sorry. I should have been paying more attention." Claire's face softened. "Emma, I know you're doing your best. This was an accident. You've been nothing but vigilant and caring. And I trust you completely with Sophie and Noah." Emma looked up at her, unsure of what to say. Her instinct was to apologize, to take full responsibility. But Claire was already shaking her head, dismissing her concern. "I trust you," Claire repeated. "Accidents happen. But you're here. And you're here for Sophie. That's what matters." For the first time in a long while, Emma believed it. She wasn't perfect. But she was good enough. And that, she realized, was more than enough. Emma's life with the Davis family had settled into a rhythm. Every morning, Sophie would run into her arms, eager to start the day with her favorite games. Noah, now more mobile, would crawl toward her, his little hands reaching out for her, trusting her completely. Claire and her husband, Peter, seemed genuinely appreciative of her work. The bond they had formed was not just one of employer and employee, but of mutual respect. And Emma had come to feel truly at home. But despite the peaceful routine, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. She had worked for enough families to know that nothing lasts forever. She had seen nannies come and go. And with each transition, the children were the ones who suffered. She didn't want to be the one who left. But she also feared becoming complacent, afraid of becoming too comfortable and letting her guard down. One crisp fall morning, as Emma prepared breakfast for Sophie and Noah, She noticed Peter in the living room, looking intently at his phone. He looked unusually serious. And Emma's stomach fluttered with unease. Was something wrong? Good morning, Peter. Emma greeted, carrying a tray of fresh fruit into the dining room. Is everything okay? Peter looked up from his phone, his brow furrowing slightly. He gave a small smile, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. Morning, Emma. Yeah, everything's fine. Just dealing with some work stuff, he said, setting his phone down. Emma nodded, but the look on his face told her there was more to it than just work. The unease gnawed at her throughout the morning. Was he upset with her? Was there something she had done wrong? She tried to push the thoughts out of her mind, focusing instead on making sure Sophie and Noah had everything they needed. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Later that afternoon, Claire called Emma into the kitchen. Emma, I need to talk to you for a minute, she said, her voice calm but serious. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Was this the conversation she had been dreading? Was Claire about to tell her that they no longer needed her? Emma followed Claire into the kitchen, trying to steady her nerves. The kitchen was warm, the smell of fresh bread filling the air. Claire sat at the table, her hands folded in front of her, her expression unreadable. Sit down, Emma, Claire said softly, motioning to the chair across from her. Emma hesitated but took a seat, her hands trembling slightly. Is everything okay? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Claire studied her for a moment before speaking. There's something I need to tell you. Peter and I have been talking, and we've decided that it's time to make some changes. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she couldn't speak. She had known this moment would come eventually, but the reality of it hit harder than she had expected. What changes? She managed to ask, her heart pounding in her chest. Claire sighed, her expression softening. We've decided that we need to make a transition. We're moving the kids to a different school, one that requires more of a commute. And after much thought, we believe it's time to part ways with our nanny. The words struck Emma like a blow. Part ways? After everything? After she had worked so hard to build this life with Sophie and Noah? After the trust they had shared? It was ending. For a moment, Emma felt the world around her spin. She opened her mouth to protest, to ask why, but the words caught in her throat. How could she even begin to explain the connection she felt to these children? They were like family to her now, and the thought of leaving them felt unbearable. Claire noticed the shock in Emma's eyes and immediately reached out to her. Emma, I want you to understand. This decision isn't about your work. You've been wonderful with Sophie and Noah. You've done everything right. But with the new changes, the commute will be too much. We're just trying to adjust to the new situation. Please know it's not personal. Emma blinked back the tears that were threatening to spill over. She nodded, though the sting of rejection was impossible to ignore. I understand, she said quietly, her voice shaky. Please, Emma, Claire continued, her voice tinged with regret. You've been a blessing to our family. I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us. This is just the next step in a new chapter. Emma felt her throat tighten as she fought to maintain control. Thank you for everything. I appreciate everything you've done for me too, she said, her voice barely audible. The conversation ended, but the silence that followed weighed heavily on Emma's heart. She spent the next few days packing her belongings, unsure of what the future held. The thought of leaving the Davis family, leaving Sophie and Noah, was almost too much to bear. But in the quiet moments of her departure, Emma realized something. This wasn't the end of her journey, it was just another chapter. And though she would always remember the Davis family, she knew that she would rise again. She had always risen before. And this time, she would rise even higher. Emma Hayes was no longer just a nanny. She was a woman who had weathered storms. A woman who had earned her place in the world. And a woman who would never give up on herself. Not ever again. The days following her departure from the Davis family were a blur of emotions. Emma felt a deep ache as she said goodbye to Sophie and Noah, the children she had come to love as her own. Her heart, heavy with the weight of the loss, felt as though it had been ripped in two. She didn't just leave a job behind, she left a family. And although Claire's kind words about the transition offered some comfort, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that her entire world had shifted. She spent the first few days in solitude, staying in her small apartment and reflecting on everything that had led her here. The sadness was undeniable, but it was also mixed with a flicker of something else, something deeper, more resilient. She had faced rejection before, but this time felt different. This time, she had learned that her worth wasn't defined by the job she held or the people who might choose to leave her. Her worth came from within. With each passing day, Emma's resolve grew stronger. She knew she couldn't let the end of her time with the Davis family define her. It was just another chapter, one that had come to an end. But her story wasn't finished. She had learned too much, loved too deeply, and fought too hard to allow herself to be defeated now. After a week of mulling over her options, Emma decided it was time to take control of her future. She didn't want to go back to being just a nanny. She wanted more. She had spent enough years helping other families build their lives, now it was time to build her own. She spent the next few days crafting a plan. Emma had always been good with children, but her passion for caring for them wasn't the only thing that defined her. She had learned how to organize, to manage, and to take charge in situations that required patience and understanding. These were skills that, while honed in the context of childcare, could translate into something bigger. It was then that Emma had an epiphany: why not use her experience to start something new? She had always been drawn to working with families, helping them navigate the challenges of raising children while maintaining a sense of balance and well-being. Emma could offer guidance, support, and expertise. But this time, as a consultant, not a mere caretaker, with a new sense of purpose. She started to research everything she would need to launch her own business. She began reading about family dynamics, child development, and effective parenting strategies. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but the more she learned, the more confident she became that this was the direction she was meant to go in. Emma had always been more than just a nanny. She had been a mentor, a support system, a sounding board. Now, she would help others build strong, thriving families, just as she had done for Sophie and Noah. The process wasn't instant. Emma spent months refining her ideas, reaching out to other professionals in the field, and building a network. She knew that if she wanted to make a real impact, she had to offer more than just advice. She had to offer actionable plans, resources, and personalized support. Slowly but surely, her vision began to take shape. As she worked on building her business, Emma found herself connecting with other women who had similar experiences. They shared stories of challenges faced and victories won. Emma began to realize how many people, especially women, were seeking guidance and support when it came to raising children. It wasn't just about feeding and dressing them, it was about teaching them values, building a foundation of trust, and ensuring their emotional well-being. One afternoon, Emma received an email that would change everything. It was from a woman named Rachel, a single mother who had recently moved to the area and was struggling to find balance in her life. Rachel had heard about Emma's new venture through a local parenting group, and she wanted to know more. Emma felt a spark of excitement. This was exactly what she had been waiting for. They arranged to meet at a local cafe. Rachel was kind, warm, and open about the challenges she was facing as a single parent. She expressed feeling overwhelmed and unsure about how to balance her career, social life, and raising her two young children. Rachel's honesty and vulnerability struck Emma deeply. This was the reason she had started her business, to help women like Rachel who were doing their best, but needed support. Over the next few months, Emma worked closely with Rachel. They crafted a schedule that balanced work, family time, and self-care. Emma offered advice on parenting strategies, emotional support, and how to stay grounded when life became chaotic. Slowly, Rachel began to feel more confident in her ability to juggle everything. And the changes in her family dynamic were evident. Her children were more engaged, and the home felt more peaceful. The success of working with Rachel was the validation Emma needed. Her business wasn't just a dream, it was becoming a reality. Word began to spread. And soon, Emma was working with more families, offering workshops, one-on-one consultations, and creating resources to help others navigate the complexities of family life. Looking back on her journey, Emma felt a sense of pride she had never known before. She had started with nothing but a desire to make a difference. And now, she was building something that could truly change lives. She had found her purpose, her calling, and it was more fulfilling than she could have ever imagined. Part 7. Rising to the Challenge. Emma's new business, Emma Hayes Family Consulting, had taken off in a way she hadn't anticipated. What started as a small venture to help single parents and struggling families had blossomed into a successful practice, with families across the city seeking her expertise. Her reputation for providing thoughtful, personalized support was spreading, and Emma found herself working with more families than she had ever imagined. But success, as Emma was learning, came with its own set of challenges. Her schedule was packed, and while she felt fulfilled by the work she was doing, there were moments when she felt overwhelmed. Balancing her growing business, maintaining a healthy work-life balance, and taking care of herself was proving to be more difficult than she had expected. One evening, after a long day of back-to-back consultations, Emma collapsed onto her couch. Exhausted, she stared at the ceiling, feeling a deep sense of pride but also a sense of burnout creeping in. It had been weeks since she had taken a break, and the weight of it was starting to take its toll. The phone was constantly buzzing with messages, clients needing her advice, her attention, her energy. It was a dream come true, but it was also exhausting. Emma had always been a people pleaser, someone who had trouble saying no. She wanted to help everyone, to be everything to everyone. But now, she was starting to realize that this was no longer sustainable. She needed to take a step back, to reassess her priorities and find a way to manage the growing demand without losing herself in the process. The following morning, Emma decided it was time to make some changes. She called in a mentor, a former colleague who had built a successful family consulting business herself, to help guide her through this next phase of growth. Sarah had always been Emma's sounding board, someone who understood the challenges of running a business while maintaining personal well-being. "Emma, I'm proud of everything you've accomplished," Sarah said during their call. "But you're burning the candle at both ends. You've built something incredible. But if you keep pushing like this, you're going to crash. You need to start delegating. And you need to set boundaries. Your clients will respect you more for it." Emma took Sarah's advice to heart. She realized that she couldn't do everything on her own. Nor did she need to. It was time to hire help, both for her business and for her personal life. She needed someone to handle administrative tasks, someone to take care of the marketing side of things, and most importantly, she needed to find time for herself. After a few interviews, Emma hired MIA, a young woman with a background in marketing and a passion for working with families. MIA was bright, energetic, and organized, everything Emma needed. She also hired Liam, a former teacher who had transitioned into educational consulting, to assist with creating family-focused educational materials and resources for her clients. With her new team in place, Emma found herself breathing a little easier. She was able to delegate tasks and focus on what she did best, working directly with families and guiding them through the challenges they faced. The pressure that had been building slowly began to lift, and she felt like she was regaining control of her life. However, there was still one aspect of her life that Emma struggled to manage, her own well-being. She had always put others first, but in doing so, she had neglected her own needs. Her sleep had suffered. Her diet had become irregular. And her exercise routine had all but disappeared. She knew that to continue doing this work that she loved, she needed to take care of herself. 2. She set a new goal for herself. She would start each day with a 30-minute walk through the park, giving her time to clear her mind before diving into work. She would also commit to cooking more balanced meals and setting aside time for self-care in the evenings, whether that meant reading a book, taking a bath, or simply enjoying a quiet moment alone. As she began to implement these changes, Emma noticed a shift in herself. She had more energy, more focus, and a renewed sense of purpose. She felt stronger, physically and mentally, and better equipped to handle the demands of her business and her personal life. The more she prioritized herself, the more she was able to give to others. With this newfound balance, Emma's consulting practice continued to grow. She began to host workshops, where she shared her insights on balancing family life with personal well-being. Her workshops were attended by parents, educators, and even corporate professionals who wanted to learn how to foster healthier work-life balance and improve family dynamics. One of her most successful workshops was a 6-week course titled The Balanced Family: Building Strong Relationships While Maintaining Your Own Identity. It became so popular that Emma had to expand it to multiple locations. And soon, she was traveling to other cities to offer her expertise to a wider audience. Emma's reach was growing, and she felt proud of the impact she was making. But even as her business flourished, Emma remained grounded. She remembered the hard lessons she had learned, lessons about self-worth, resilience, and the importance of balance. The road to success had not been easy, but each challenge had shaped her into the woman she was today, a woman who knew her worth, who understood her own limits, and who was determined to continue growing, both personally and professionally. In the quiet moments, when Emma would pause to reflect on how far she had come, she couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful for the families who had trusted her, for the journey that had led her here, and for the future that lay ahead. Emma Hayes had built something lasting, something meaningful, and it was only the beginning. Emma's life had come a long way since those early, difficult days when she first started her family consulting business. What had once been a small, almost timid venture was now a thriving practice, with a steadily growing clientele and a team that was beginning to feel like family. Emma had expanded her reach far beyond her local area, thanks to word of mouth and her successful workshops. But even as her professional life flourished, there were still personal challenges she needed to face. The biggest challenge was learning to trust herself in her new role as a leader. For years, Emma had been the one to follow, the one to take care of others. Now, she was the one others looked to for guidance. And sometimes, she questioned whether she was doing enough or making the right decisions. There were moments when she doubted her ability to lead a growing team and wondered if she was still the same woman who had struggled to make ends meet in the early days of her career. It was during one of these moments of self-doubt that Emma received an invitation that would change the course of her life again. The invitation came from a prestigious parenting conference in New York City. The event, which was attended by professionals from all over the country, was offering a keynote speaker slot to a select few individuals who had made significant contributions to the field of family and child care. Emma was honored and terrified at the same time. Her initial reaction was disbelief. Was she really being invited to speak at such an important event? What would she even say? She had spent her whole life caring for others. But now, she had to step into the spotlight and share her own story, her own journey, and that was something she had never been comfortable doing. However, the more Emma thought about it, the more she realized this was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. It was a chance to share the lessons she had learned over the years, to help others who were struggling to find balance in their own lives, and to inspire other women who wanted to make a difference. She knew that this was a pivotal moment, one that could take her business and her confidence to the next level. For the next few weeks, Emma poured herself into preparing for her speech. She wrote and rewrote her story, thinking carefully about the messages she wanted to convey. She practiced in front of mirrors, recorded herself speaking, and asked friends and colleagues for feedback. She worked tirelessly to ensure that her presentation would not just be informative, but inspiring. It had to resonate with the audience. The day of the conference arrived, and Emma found herself standing backstage, nerves bubbling in her stomach. The auditorium was massive, filled with hundreds of people who had gathered to hear from some of the most respected names in parenting and child care. Emma had never been more terrified in her life, but she knew she couldn't turn back. When her name was called, Emma walked out onto the stage, her heart pounding in her chest. The spotlight was blinding, and the sea of faces in the audience made her feel small, like a speck in the grand scheme of things. But as she began to speak, something amazing happened. The nervousness started to fade, and she found herself in the flow of her own words. She shared her story of how she had gone from being a struggling nanny to building a successful business that helped families thrive. She talked about the importance of balance, of self-care, and of trusting one's own instincts. Emma's words resonated with the audience in a way she hadn't expected. She could see their eyes light up, their heads nodding in agreement as they listened to her speak with passion and sincerity. For the first time in her life, Emma realized that her story had power. She had something valuable to offer, a message of hope, of resilience, and of the importance of putting family first, while also making time for oneself. The standing ovation she received at the end of her speech took her completely by surprise. She had done it. She had faced her fears, stepped into the spotlight, and shared her truth with an audience that needed to hear it. And in that moment, Emma realized that she wasn't just a small-town nanny anymore. She was a leader, a speaker, a role model. The conference opened many doors for Emma. She received several offers to collaborate with parenting organizations, and her business saw a significant increase in inquiries. The connections she made there would take her work to a whole new level, allowing her to impact more lives than she had ever dreamed possible. Back home, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just building a business anymore, she was building a movement. She had always known that her work was important, but now, she felt more confident than ever that she was on the right path. She was no longer just helping families get by, she was helping them thrive. And that, Emma realized, was what she had always wanted to do. Her business continued to grow, and with it, her sense of self. Emma no longer questioned her ability to lead. She had proven to herself that she could rise to any challenge, no matter how daunting it seemed. She was no longer the unsure woman who had struggled to find her way. She was Emma Hayes, the woman who had built something meaningful, something lasting, and something that would make a difference for generations to come. As Emma stood on the balcony of her new office, looking out over the city, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey had been long and full of challenges, but each step had shaped her into the woman she had always aspired to be: strong, confident, and unwavering in her commitment to help others. Her business had grown, her personal life was balanced, and most importantly, she had stayed true to her values. She had created a life that not only brought her joy but also made a difference in the lives of countless families. Emma smiled to herself, knowing that this was just the beginning. She was no longer afraid of the unknown, she was ready for whatever the future held. Thank you for following Emma's journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories from Life Stories. Stay tuned for more.